Okay, we can start now. We are live on YouTube.
Okay, Raghu, you can take that floor.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to day two of our workshop on fundamentals of research, principles, pathways, and prospects. Now, yesterday's session familiarized us with the foundational aspects of research, from understanding its ethics and scope to exploring diverse academic and professional pathways that one can take. Now, building on that groundwork, today's discussion will take us deeper into research methodology, academic writing, and the evolving landscape of legal as well as policy research. Now, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our distinguished speaker for today's session, Ms. Prerna, an accomplished scholar, researcher, and a proud alumna of our institution. For those of you who missed yesterday's session, Ms. Deep holds an LLM in criminal law and criminal justice from the University of Edinburgh, where she was the British Council Great Scholar and recipient of the Edinburgh Award for Student Leadership. She has served as law clerk-cum-research associated to the Honorable Justice Anuradha Bose at the Supreme Court of India and currently works as a Global Data Fellow at Childlight, the Global Child Safety Institute at the University of Edinburgh. Her journey reflects a seamless blend of academic excellence, research rigor, and professional leadership. From interning at top law offices, mentoring aspiring scholars across South Asia, to spearheading research on diverse topics such as AI regulation, mental health, gender, as well as child protection. We are truly honored to have her back with us today. Now, for time considerations, all participants are requested to add any questions that they might have in the comment section so that they can be adequately addressed in the Q&A session. Having said that, now I would like to request the interim student coordinator of Shodh, the Research Society of Campus Law Center, Uday Bhadoria, to deliver the welcome address. Over to you, Uday.
Very good evening to everyone. I hope you found the first day of our two-day workshop on fundamentals of research, principal pathways, and prospects insightful and engaging. We are delighted to be back for day two, and it is my distinct honor to introduce our speaker for today, a distinguished alumna of Campus Law Center, Ms. Prerna. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. It is both a privilege and a moment of pride to host one of our own alumna whose academic and professional journey has been nothing short of inspiring. We work at the intersection of criminal justice, child protection, and emerging technologies, exemplifies the depth and interdisciplinary nature of modern legal research. Precisely the direction of this workshop aims to encourage. We look forward to your insights on how to approach research with purpose, structure, and integrity, and on how young scholars can navigate the expanding horizons of legal and policy scholarship. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for taking time to guide and inspire the next generation of researchers. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, and thank you for everyone who's joined again today on Sunday evening here to learn something about research. I will quickly share my presentation to guide you better. One second. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So today, yeah, okay. So today we'll be designing the research roadmap. So basically looking at how you start doing the research, which starts with identifying the research gap. Because if you remember yesterday, we were talking about the research mindset, the 6 C's, about how, and one of the C was contribute, which looked at how you would contribute through your research. So if you're looking to contribute for that, you need to find a research gap first. That's what this would be, identifying the research gap. Then we'd be looking at how to frame a research problem. We'll be briefly looking at the methodology and the tools. I'll try to focus more on understanding the publication ecosystem, which starts with, first of all, why should you disseminate research? Why should you publish? Why does it even matter? Going forward with writing for publication, what is the process? What should be the strategy? We will try to dissect a research paper, see what elements are there, which is like general to all research papers. Of course, I keep saying when you're writing to publish, it's always important to check at the place you're planning to publish, because everybody have their own samples, their own styles and bodies. So while we will be dissecting a general research paper, these things differ publication to publication. So ensure you check in with the place you want to get published at. Then we'll be looking at the different types of research outputs, which is basically, are you planning to write a blog? Are you planning to write a research paper, an article? What is it? What not? Briefly look at the publication process. If time permits, we'll do a quick exercise. Unfortunately, we did not get time yesterday. We were already running really late. And then, like already it has been mentioned, keep putting your questions throughout the session in the chat. So in the end, we can discuss it. And of course, I'll leave some time in the end for the Q&A and some discussion if time permits. So yes, let's start. Second. So the first thing, designing the research roadmap. So the first thing I want to say is that I'm trying to briefly cover the overview of all of this here, because these individual topics can have one workshop each. These are such detailed and intricate topics. But here I'm trying to make you understand, for somebody who's never written, for somebody who wants to start writing or wants to get better at it, on how do you start? Where do you start from? Because you're always just like, oh, I want to write, but then how do you write? Where do you start from? So this is what it is. Where do you start from? This is your starting point of where does research ideas come from. So it can come from a personal curiosity. If, for example, you read a piece of work, or you're just like, oh, why does this happen? If law says about something about this, why? That why is your personal curiosity, and you want to know more about it, and you want to write more about it. That's one way to go about researching on something. The other ways are academic writings. So you've read something in your coursework and you're like, oh, I want to add something to it, or I want to analyze it from a different lens, or I want to critique it, whatever it is. That's another way you start doing your research. It can come from judgment and statutes. For example, case commentaries. I think case commentaries are like really easy way to get into writing, because the scope of case commentary is really narrow compared to an article or a research paper. So it's an easy way to get in. So case commentary, you're commenting on a particular statute, that is a policy gap. If some recommendations have come from the government, let's say NHRC has published some recommendations for child protection, and you read those recommendations. So now at this point, it's not a statute. It may become a statute. These are just policies right now that have come, or they've just come for consultation. So you look at it and you have your own views about it. You want to highlight something. You again want to critique something on it. It can be one of the ways you go about starting your research. Then comes faculty projects. If you know some of your faculties who are working on something, or if you know other mentors or other professionals who are working on something that you like, or they're just working on something and you want to have that exposure, that's also one way to get into research, by assisting them, helping them in the research, whatever they're saying, understanding and learning. So these are few basic ways on how you start, where you start from, how do you choose your topic. Now the second point is, what is a research gap? So let's say you have chosen a topic, you've decided, oh, I want to write on AI and judicial pendency. So fine, your topic, you read it somewhere, it inspires you, you want to write on it. Next question comes is a research gap. So fine, AI and judicial pendency is a broad topic. You really need to narrow it down to what is it in that you want to highlight or contribute at. So research gap is a space between what is known and what needs to be known. So let's say once you decided a bit on the topic, you go online and you read a lot of articles, you go to library, use your books, you have an idea about the information that is available, and from that you can figure out what is missing. So let's say you read a lot about AI and judicial pendency, and all you have found is there are things that talk about how AI can help in judicial pendency from administrative side, which is, for example, the softwares that can be used to create better data system to understand where the judicial pendency is, or there are more softwares, like that's showing you the real time information on judicial pendency, all of that. But there are not enough information on how, if possible, judicial pendency can be reduced by incorporating AI in the courtroom with respect to the judges. So now you have found this one particular gap. You're like, oh, this is missing. Not a lot of information is available on this particular topic. That can be your research gap. You figured it out on what you want to focus on and contribute to. Now, once you figured out kind of the gap where it is, the next point comes to research problem, which is the topic specific and significant? Because if you're choosing a topic that is not relevant, that somebody is not interested in, that, or that's like so outdated that so many things have been written on it, people might want to read on it. So why should you waste your time writing about something like that? Have I located a clear gap? Like the gap that you think that you've located, is it just because you have not read enough material yourself? If you will read like 5 articles and think you found a gap and start writing on it, it's not going to work out. You need to read 50 articles to find out a gap. So be sure that you have figured out what you want to contribute and there is an actual gap there. Then comes choosing a research design, which is basically what we spoke about yesterday on the types of research, which is like doctrinal, empirical, like if you're just doing like a library-based research, or you're going on the field and collecting data, or you're using mixed method, which is that you're using both doctrinal and empirical, and so more. Then in the end comes the scope and limitations of your research, which is basically the scope would be what jurisdictions, for example, what jurisdictions are you looking at? What time period are you looking at? Are you looking at since time immemorial? Are you looking at the last 10 years, the last 5 years, the last year, whatever? That is the scope of your research. What legal frameworks are you looking at? Are you looking at just the statutes in India, the statutes abroad as well? Are you looking at policies? Are you looking at international law as well? So what are the different categories that you're looking at? All of this together defines what will be the scope of your research. So when somebody is reading your work and they can see, oh, you've used this jurisdiction, this time period, these legal framework, it's clear to them that this is the scope of your research. Because if you've not mentioned the scope of your research on what your article or your paper was going to do, it might look incomplete to a reader because they don't know what you had in mind. So if I have not mentioned that, oh, this article will deal with A, B, C, D, if somebody is reading it, the topic is very broad. So they can think I have missed on 1,000 things when I have not, because my focus was not on it. So the scope will help defining the focus of your research. Then comes the limitation, which could be if you're looking at data, it could be, oh, the data for this time period was not available. So the data was not accessible. You did not have certain resources that was required to do a particular type of research. The time that you've looked at. So let's say you have done your research and you looked at only last 5 years, which is a limitation. You've not looked at the research before it. You need to mention it. So somebody can clearly have an idea about what your research is about. And then at the same time, now what it will also do is give you credibility that, oh, you have thought it all through on how you have planned it. When we will later discuss more about the writing part of it, then I will tell you on how all of these things may or may not be mentioned in every kind of format of writing. But when you are starting your work, even if you're not putting it out on publication, writing it, you should know. You should know all of this to bring out a good research and writing piece. Moving ahead. So quickly, identifying the research gap. One of the ways you can identify the research gap is by reviewing existing scholarship. So again, like I mentioned, read 50, 100 articles, and then you'll figure out, oh, what is there and what is not there. You can't read 5 articles and figure it out. You need to read extensively. research starts at reading. Research does not start at understanding. Research does not start at writing. It starts at looking up and reading. So read extensively. If you have trouble reading, if you can't concentrate for more, start. We all have studied case maths, right? So I think start by not looking at the key and looking at the case match for the first thing, so you can understand, you can build your reading adaptability and capability. So start by reading cases. If you think that reading articles or blogs are too much, start by reading cases and build onto it, because anyway in legal profession you will always have to read cases and judgments, and you will always have to do it yourself quite religiously. No AI will help you in it, because AI is not human. Even if it tells you what the overview is, overview does not win you cases. Overview does not get you awards. What gets you awards and win you cases are those integral details that other people have missed. And the way you will find those details are by going through all of this information yourself, not through an AI. So review the existing scholarship, then collecting or analyzing data trends or court reports. So, if you're looking at, you're reviewing cases of a particular period, last 10 years, and you see, all the cases of death penalty, for example, these number of cases are going to Supreme Court, these number of cases give death penalty, these number of cases are getting reversed, these number of cases are getting pardoned, are going to acquittal, whatnot. So now you are analyzing the trends of the cases that's going there. That's one way you figure out a research gap, that, what is happening here? If this number of cases, or for example, if these number of cases are being registered, but only 10% of those cases turn into conviction, why? What's happening there in the system? That's your area that you're trying to look at, finding the research gap. Read judgments critically, of course, always. I mean, we're all being taught this at CLC, so I hope you incorporate it in your daily lives as well, is ask how did the court come to this, and what has been left unanswered. While judgments are binding, and especially Supreme Court and all of that, you can always develop a critical side to it for yourself, to understanding what the court has missed, if anything. And if you think the court has missed on something that really needs to be out, you can always be critical in a respectful way about it. So develop your critical skills, and accordingly, these areas will help you figure out the research gap. Now, framing a research problem. So I don't want to bombard you with like 1,000 new words and information. So I'll just quickly mention about the things that you need to keep in mind when you figured out you've found your research topic. Basically, is if you look at the first thing, is like relevance. Is it significant to law or policy? Number one thing. So like these 5 things, always keep in mind when you're figuring out what you want to write down. Is it relevant? Is it significant to a law policy? Is it original? Is it adding something to it? If I'm asking you what is domestic violence, if you just want to answer what is domestic violence, like I also mentioned the same example earlier yesterday, and if you will just mention me what the statute says, that's there. I don't need to read your blog to read that. I will go directly to the particular source and read what domestic violence, how it is defined in the statute itself. You are not doing any favors by just summarizing it for me again in your blog piece. You need to bring out some addition to it. That's the original, the contribution, the originality I'm talking about here. It doesn't have to be something so miraculous or something so huge, life groundbreaking. It just has to be something. Then feasibility. Can it be studied within the time or resources? So, if you think, for example, when you're writing for publication, a lot of times you see these call for papers. So you have to submit the paper in like a month or 2 months, or sometimes like within 15 days. So think the topic that you have chosen, will you be able to write on it in the next 1 month? The area that you want to research on? Be mindful of it. Do you have the time? Do you have the resources? Resources are usually become more important when you're doing empirical work, because you have to be on the ground. But even when you do doctrinal work, just see the scope of your research. If you've taken like a topic that is so big, so huge that you can't finish it in a month, try to narrow it down. You don't have to tell everything about something. You just have to tell something so eloquently and coherently that when somebody reads a piece of work, they're just like, oh my god, this is exactly what I was looking for. So try to see the feasibility of it. Then comes clarity. So when you are writing, if you're writing 1,000 word small blog piece, if you're writing an op-ed of 700 words, or you're writing a research paper of 7,000 words, ensure that what you're writing, it leaves no ambiguity. I should not be reading your blog and then be like, what the hell was this? What is the author trying to say? They confuse themselves. That should not come out. So a way to do is when you write, after that, detach yourself, shut down your computer, give some time, reopen and read it as an editor and see if you were reading this piece of work for the first time, would you agree that you're able to understand it, or would you just be like, what is this? Because a lot of times when we are writing as writers, we have the background knowledge of what we want to convey, and there's so we convey it in a way because we have the background. We're just like, oh, we just put these 2 points out there because in our head we have the whole story. But when somebody is reading it on the other side, they only see those 2 lines. They don't see the whole story you have in your head. So they might feel it's incomplete, or it's ambiguous, or it's vague. So ensure that whatever you're writing is clear enough. And again, ethical, being ethics and ethical in research, we spoke about yesterday on ensure you are citing everything properly, ensure you're mentioning giving credit to every collaborator, and you're handling the data properly, and you have the consents of all the participants if it's like an empirical research. So, for example, this is an example that I've given in the next one. So, from topic to problem is like, let's say you've chosen a topic of judicial delay. The next, now narrowing it down to a particular question is like, for example, how effective is differentiated case management, is a type of case management to control judicial pendency in reducing pendency in the Supreme Court. So as you can see, the topic of judicial delay is so broad, extremely broad, so many things can come within it. Now from it, I have chosen something so specific. And now whatever piece I want to write, I can write 1,000 words piece on it, or like a 10,000 words piece on it. Whatever it is, it already reduces the scope of my research to one particular problem that I want to answer through my research. So there are other examples also here. For example, what lessons can India draw from UK's restorative justice framework for juvenile offenders? Now, if you look at it broadly, it covers so many topics. It covers comparative analysis, UK, India. It covers restorative justice. It covers juvenile justice, because we're talking about juvenile offenders also. All of these topics together, we can't bring the full topics. But then we have picked out one particular question. We have framed a question or something which can be a personal curiosity. You've read it somewhere, and then you've read a lot of articles on it, and you figured out, oh, this is like a gap, I want to write on it. And then accordingly, you frame the problem in your mind that this is what I want to solve. Okay, so that's about framing the research problem. So next comes the methodology and tools. So again, the types of research approaches we discussed yesterday: doctrinal, empirical, mix, etc. Now a well-designed research methodology. So when you're doing big research, you need to mention very particularly exactly what methodology you're using. When you're writing for like blogs and all, not so much. Also, the guidelines differ from publication to publication on what they want and where they want. So this is why I keep repeating, when you're writing to publish, ensure you have gone to the page of the publication and see all the guidelines for authors, because they differ for every publication. But in general, your methodology section should talk about what research design it is, which is basically if it's a doctrinal research or empirical research, what sources are you using, what data collection tools, if any, are you using, what is the scope and limitation, and the ethical consideration, if it requires any consent, confidentiality, and whatever. So all of these things should come in your methodology and tools area. Now I'll jump to understanding the publication ecosystem. So, number one question being why research dissemination matters anyway. So, of course, it's to share the knowledge of what you have found out through your research and contribute to public discourse, to influence law, policy, institutional reforms, to build your academic identity and credibility, and to invite collaborations and dialogues. Just because you've done something and you want it out, you want to add to the whole scholarship of it, you want your research to be disseminated because you worked so hard on it. Yes. No, sorry. Quickly we look at the publication process and strategy. So number one step is you can, for example, turn a course essay or an interim report into some publishable article. You can choose the topics that you already discussed that you're passionate about and translate into a quality. The second step would be use when you're writing how you write. It is preferred if you use active voice, short sentences, and precise legal terms. But there are law is still very traditional and conventional when it comes to writing. So when you're writing op-eds and blogs, prefer active voice. But when you're writing a lot of research articles, a lot of big journals don't prefer you use I. So even if you want to say, let's say you want to conclude, I want to say that judicial system needs reform. I will not phrases like I want to say judicial system is not requires reform. You would frame it something like this article concludes judicial system requires reform. So you avoid the term I, me. So again, it depends on the publication, but mostly in research papers and all you do that. In law, science mostly allows you to have more of I, me, and you situation. So just something to keep in mind. Avoid being too ornamental with your language that somebody can't even understand what you're trying to say. Each paragraph that you're using should have a function, should contain context, analysis, or conclusion. Third step comes as editing. Once you have written, take a break and then start editing again. Run it multiple drafts, read it out aloud, and try to go line by line editing what you have written, because your first draft will never look like what your last draft is. It should not. If your first draft is looking exactly like how you're sending it to publication, you've not done your editing right. Your first draft should never look like your last draft. Then comes referencing and formatting. So follow one consistent style. If not mentioned, a lot of publications says uniform form style citation. So you can choose whatever you're more comfortable in. If it's OSCOLA, if it's APA, whatever. Otherwise, whatever they have mentioned. Add footnotes as you write, don't postpone it. I'm really guilty of it because I absolutely hate doing referencing, and then it becomes really overwhelming in the end. So try to keep adding footnotes as you write. You can also create a bibliography on tools like Zotero, Mendeley, Site Manager that I mentioned yesterday. And the last one is, if you're writing for the first time and you would like some feedback, you can always, share your draft with a mentor, your peer, senior student, or even your professors. And, whatever constructive criticism they come up with, just accept it and make those changes. So when I first started writing, my started writing was not in law school. It was when I was doing my undergrad. So I did go to my professors a lot, and they gave me quite scathing feedback about a lot of things. And I had to incorporate all of it, and then I ran multiple drafts about it before I could have some confidence in my writing. And even when I was in law school, I did reach out to a few professors who had read draft of my paper before I sent for publication, and they gave me their feedback. So, if you reach out to a professor at CLC, they will do it because they've done it. I have gotten it done from them. Now, coming to next. Now we'll look at the anatomy of a research paper and how you build on it. So as you can see, so this is an ideal research paper, So it will change depending on where you sending it to publication, what kind of research you're getting published in what format and what not. But yeah, ideally, this is what a research paper would consist, which is a title. It captures the essence of the work. Keep it concise but meaningful. Don't make your title too long. Avoid like the regular jargons. Then comes the abstract. So the abstract is the summary. It summarizes the question, the method, and finding of what you have done. It's usually between 150 to 250 words unless a word limit is mentioned. It's preferred and advisable that you always write your abstract in the end, but it's always read first, of course. It's a first in the hierarchy. Then comes the introduction, which sets the context and the rationale. You can start it with a hook, a case, a statistic, or a quote. Then comes the literature review, which positions your work within the existing debates. So here you need to mention about the sources and critique them, not just list them of like A, B, C, D. Don't do that. Then comes the research methodology, which explains about your approach and your scope. Ensure it's clear and reproducibility is high. Then comes the analysis and discussion, which is basically the heart of what your argument is. Use subheadings and be logical with your flow. Then comes the findings and recommendations. So this shows how you contributed to the existing knowledge. Be precise, don't make sweeping, huge recommendations. Then comes the conclusion, which summarizes and reflects on the broader implications. It ends, basically, it is on the big reveal of what you are building your entire argument to, is what this reveals, the conclusion. And in the end comes the bibliography. Of course, it gives credibility, and it's also extremely ethical because, like we mentioned yesterday, that you need to cite everything that you are writing, that you're borrowing from anywhere. And at any good place where you're wanting to get published, they run it through Turnitin, and Turnitin catches every single thing. So don't think they will not figure it out. Now, if somebody has any question, just please keep dropping it. If you want to know more about the structure, any section of it. Now comes the types of research output, which is, for example, a journal article. It gives you the academic recognition, you add to the scholarly debate. Book chapter, which are more thematic because books would be of a particular theme and particular area. So you have to add accordingly of that particular theme and area. Then you have policy brief or report, which is you want to advocate for a particular law reform. You want to advocate for a particular policy. Then you have conference paper. Conference is a good way to go and present your ideas because you're going to get feedback, and later you can develop it into a full paper. So it's testing ideas, getting feedback of professionals, and then converting it into a full paper. And then you have like blog or online articles, which is like quick dissemination and visibility, and it's also quite small to start with because I have seen blogs who require like as less as 800 words to as high as 3,000. So you can choose accordingly. So these are some few of the popular research outputs that you can choose from. If you're starting, just beginning to write, I always recommend blog because they are not quite hefty. You can start by writing 1,000 words, making it more, reforming your writing style more than just jumping to like shabby 7,000 words. So yeah, popular research outputs, these are. So now choosing the right venue. So basically, when you're choosing where to get published, I was mentioning about it yesterday also about being wary of the predatory journals. So now you see so many blogs, so many articles, so many journals out there. Even when you're researching, not just for publication, if you want to put something on your paper, you need to be careful of what you are reading. I'll give an example. Recently, we were doing some copy editing for some journal. And then when we do the copy editing or the peer review of it, we check every single footnote, and we see that the footnote where you've taken it from, it actually makes sense. And we also see that the footnote that you've taken from is from a legible source. So we found one of the footnotes taken in that particular article was from a predatory journal. So we had to send back the feedback to the author saying, listen, the footnotes that you've used are from predatory journals. They are not well recognized and we can't accept it. So depending on how many of such footnotes they've used, it's either a direct rejection or it's sent back for reforming. They have to rewrite the whole thing or parts of it, whatever. So like it mentioned yesterday also, if a journal is asking you to pay them, look at who the editorial board of the journal is, look at the affiliation of the journal. Go for journals which are from different colleges. Even if it's from a small college, it's okay, at least it's a college journal. Add some credibility to it. Don't go for journals or blogs that are just run by random people and institutes or like just graduates or students. Don't do it. Go for journals and blogs there's so many colleges, and even the research centers of colleges have their own separate blogs. The NGOs, the public policy, and just even independent research centers, credible research centers have their own blog. So contribute there. Try to contribute there. Honestly, if you have something that you've written in a kind of a place which is not well recognized, I would recommend taking it off your CV, because it, instead of helping you, shows you in a poor light. So if I see a person who has 0 publication versus a person who has 3 publication in predatory journal, the people who have 0 publication would be preferred. You might not know it as a student, but as professionals, we have very strict rules of not accepting people who are working in predatory journals and getting published there. It really takes a toll on your credibility. So ensure that you don't get published in like predatory journals. If somebody has like more doubts on what predatory journals are and how to figure it out, just drop a message or write to me. I'll be able to help you and guide you more figuring it out. But yeah, like one of the biggest flag is they're asking you for money and saying, oh, we'll get published in 72 hours. No, it takes months. It takes months to actually peer review a journal article or anything. So anything that's saying you will do it in 48 hours, 72 hours, immediate publication, it's not happening. So choosing the right venue, match your topic with the publication's focus. So sometimes the calls are for specific topics like climate change, environmental studies, whatever. So if you want to publish in that particular journal, see that your topic aligns with what the publication theme is. Then always read the previous issues of that particular journal where you want to get published, so you understand what kind of quality they are expecting. Read a few issues, read a few articles, and then see if this is something you can do or not do. Have an honest self-assessment. Don't overestimate yourself. Never underestimate, but also don't overestimate yourself. If you feel like, oh, this is the kind of work I can produce, go for it. Start with student or national journals before aiming for like the best international peer-reviewed ones. That's why I said start small, start the blogs. Also, like universities also have like usually 2 kinds of journals. One is the journals for professionals, where sometimes they do allow students to get published, and others are student-run journals, but within the university. Aim for that. It's easier to get published in that because it is meant for students. Then we come to the peer review process. So you start with submitting it to the editorial board the way sometimes through Google Form, sometimes you email, whatever the process is, through that. Then the editorial board will check the relevancy of the topic and the originality. Then comes the peer review. They will send your work to peer reviewers who are experts in those fields after removing your name and your affiliation. And they will read your work and then they will mention whether, oh, this is a good work, or is it just like repetition, it's just descriptive, or it's not really adding anything. no value is being added through your work, which is why the contribution part that we discussed in the beginning is so important, because your work will be sent to other peer reviewers who will discuss it and see if you're actually bringing something to the table. Once you are, then it goes to the next stage of like revisions. Sometimes you get like you receive comments that says, oh, like this part of your work is good, but this part requires changes. If you can make those changes and resend us, we'll be happy. Otherwise, your work is rejected. So once you get those feedback, you make the revision, send it back. And once it is approved, you may be asked to do more formatting or minor edits, and then it's sent for publication. Keep a track of your deadline, especially if you are writing for a particular call for papers, because they have like date of submission of abstract, date of registration, date of submission of full paper. So ensure you have all of that really in your mind, write it down somewhere so you don't miss out on submitting your papers. I will now quickly show you example from some of my previous articles on what I was mentioning about the structure of the paper. So 1 second. I will reshare the window. Yeah, I think it's this one. So, okay, yeah. So I'll start with, wait, sorry. I'll start with a different one actually. Yeah, so I want to start with this one. So this is the recent one that I'm working with on Childlight. So this is not a proper article. It's not a journal article. This is like a policy report on some preliminary findings that I'm working on right now. But the things I want to highlight was, so of course you have like a table of contents. You have everything: introduction, background, methodology, recommendation, finding, limitation, references. We've used APA here in this format. So now there's a research team which consists of 3 people, since which was led by me. So this is why my name is on the top. And then because I wrote it, so the corresponding author. Yeah. So this is to show you that all credits and collaborators are duly noticed. So you don't take away anything from anyone. Now, if you look at it, the introduction clearly lays down what I am examining, what the study tries to do. Now, because it is a policy report kind of situation, so we've also mentioned the key findings and recommendations here, which would not be done had it been a research paper. But now if you look at the methodology part, you see it's clearly mentioned that we're using the doctrinal legal research methodology. Now the doctrinal legal research methodology is defined in Kilcoman's 2016 paper, so it is referenced here. Also called the black letter law. This term was coined here, so this is also reference. So then we are mentioning on how we're using a thematic analysis of legal resources, the practical application, doctrinal provisions, everywhere where we're quoting some new thing from the previous, borrowing it from some other resources, it's all well quoted. Now comes the findings. Everything you can see is well cited. This is APA citation. Everything is cited. Now comes the part where recommendations, which were our recommendations. So it's not cited anywhere because this is what we are recommending. So no citations are required because this is our opinion, also because it's policy paper. But you can also see the limitations clearly mentioned. The limitation clearly talks about that the rapid conclusion of AI technology and the ongoing development of legal reform may become outdated. What we are talking about, there are some lack of cases. Our literature analysis is limited to the information available in English language. So if anything comes that's not in English, we might have excluded it. So it's clearly mentioned what the limitation of a study is. So when somebody reads this report, they know, okay, this is fair, this is what they are doing and not doing. And then everything is referenced in the APA format. So this is just to give you an idea. This is like an idea of you can take for like a policy report, advocacy situation. These are preliminary findings. So you clearly mention what is there, what you are highlighting and what not. So for the other person, it's not a drawback of your study. It's to give the readers a better idea of a holistic approach of what your study is actually doing and not doing. Now I want to share, 1 second. Yeah. So if you look at this one, this is from an article published in the Durham Law Review in April 2023. So my name, because I'm the author, but then it's edited by whoever the editor is, Laureen Wong. Their name is also mentioned, so due credit everywhere. The abstract had like I think 50 words maximum limit. So accordingly, this was really sharpened. You can see everywhere. You have to reference everywhere. Now the introduction itself mentions firstly what this article will emphasize, secondly what the article highlights, thirdly what it focuses on, lastly what it provides and how it will conclude. So if you read this just one paragraph, you will know exactly what this article will be talking about. So if somebody does not want to understand these things, they can skip the article. But if somebody wants to understand any of these aspects, they know where to come from. They don't have to look at my entire article, sieving for information of what the article is trying to say. It's all clearly mentioned here. Now, within it, you can see you have headings, subheadings to ensure that everything is clearly mentioned, everything is referenced. So you don't have to look for anything. You want to know, oh, where this is taken from here, where that is taken from here. This is how everything has to be referenced. Now, so this is an example of a journal article. That was an example of a policy paper situation. Now I'll take you to here. This was one of the blogs. So if you look at the blog, 1 second. If you look at it clearly, it starts with an introduction because King's Law College did not want any abstract. So again, it depends so much on the place you are submitting your work at. They did not need any abstract, so there was no abstract in this particular piece. So it started with what regulatory offenses are. Then again, clearly mentions what this article is trying to do, which is very, very important. Then again comes everything is cited. Everything you will not find any information taken and not cited. Now, similarly, if you look at this one, this was published in Edinburgh Napier Student Law Review. If you look at just this part, it starts with a quote. They said your introduction can start with a quote. Starts with a quote. Already mentioned, this article delves into jurisprudential concept of state and the immunity provided. So this article only deals with jurisprudence and also only deals with jurisprudence concept of these two things. Already mentioning what the scope of the article is. Now, within that also, it tells you what it will focus on. Within the scope of this article, we will focus on rational personae. So you already know that even there are two types of immunity mentioned above. This article will only focus on this. So this is how you sort of write depending on where you're getting published and what is the scope, the idea of your article and your publication. And lastly, what I want to highlight was this op-ed piece. So now this op-ed piece, because op-ed piece are opinion pieces, because this was more of an opinion piece by me. If you look at the way ahead has no references. It's because it's my opinion, which would not be so much in a journal article or a research project than here, because this is an opinion piece and my opinion matters here. So depending on where you are writing, what you're doing, you can also see how small this is. It has introduction, maybe like 3 paragraphs, and then the conclusion. So depending on where you're getting published, what you're doing, the way you're writing, what you're writing will change, and it should change. So coming back to the last bit of the final takeaways. A good research problem is born from curiosity, but refined by clarity. Research design is a map. It determines how you travel from question to answer. Don't fear refining your question. You might start with like a broader question, but go to way smaller one later. Match your method to your question or the other way around. Use reliable, ethical, and verifiable resources. Good methodology tells the reader this is how I know what I know. And that's what I was talking about yesterday also. It doesn't even come in just in publication. Also when you're briefing your seniors, briefing the workplace, institutions, the first thing they'll know, oh, you've come up with this. How have you come up with this? That's what your methodology tells. So write to inform, influence, and inspire. And lastly, yes, I think we are open to questions now. Thank you for attending it. I want to wrap it up as quickly as I can. We can take a few questions now. Should I start with, okay, there are a few things in chat. How do you decide the right methodology? So, see, the number one thing is, there's question number one thing you just need to ask is whether you're doing a doctrinal work or whether you're doing an empirical work. Empirical work as a student individually would not be recommended. Go for doctrinal one. And then even within the right methodology will come up with the research question. So what is the question that you're trying to answer? Are you trying to critique? Are you just looking at judgments? Because if you are, that will decide on what kind of methodology you're using. Are you looking at judgments and articles? Are you looking at data sets? So if you're looking data sets, then would come the analysis part. Who would do it? Would you use a software to do the analysis of the data, or would you do it yourself? So depending on what your area is, even when doing in technology and law, what is that you're trying to analyze? You need to figure out first and be sure about it. If it's numbers, data sets, if it's just judgments, if you want to, do you want it to be more graphical, or do you just want it to be more critical, analytical? What kind of work do you aim to produce? It will define your methodology. The next question, would you say that the field of academic research is premised upon? I don't think it's premised upon gatekeeping so much. I think it's more about lack of publicity. The way you are helped and the way you are supported when you're trying to get like a litigation internship, or when you're trying to get and work at a law firm, and everybody's gonna be like, oh yeah, this is what you need to do and what not to do. The same kind of support is missing when you want to do research. But then that also comes from the kind of people we're reaching out to, right? If you reach out to me and you ask me, oh, how do I get into this firm exactly? I might give you an overview because I know after I did law, I have friends there, I know about it. But I can't give you a blueprint of A to Z of that. That is, you need to ask the questions to right people. So one thing I always recommend is when you're reaching out to your mentors, look at their profile and see if they can even help you. It's not even that they're not trying to help you, but then are they even capable of? We all have our limitations, our areas, and all of that. So when you can ask general advice, right? There are some questions which are very generic. You can go to people and ask them, and everybody will be able to assist you. If you go and ask somebody, oh, how to succeed in law, everyone will have an answer to that question depending on their experience. But if you go and ask us like, oh, how do I get published in this particular journal? If somebody has not done it, they might not, even if they try their best, they might not help you. So you need to ask right questions to the right people. Also, be more specific in your questions when you reach out to people instead of being like extremely vague. Like I get a lot of questions about, oh, I want to pursue LLM. How do I do it? Do you see how vague that is? Even if I want to help you, like where do I start from? From the fact that you need to maintain all your grades, you need to know where you want to apply, you need to know, are you looking for a funding or do you have, are you going to sustain yourself? There are so many questions that I don't know myself about you. So you need to be more specific about your question. So I think it's less gatekeeping. What happens is once you're in the circle, you know these things. So it becomes easier for you. It's not like others are not letting you come in. It's just you cracking the code. So reach out to people who know it instead of people who have even if they have their best wishes for you, they just don't know it themselves. So they can't really help you in that sense. Okay, so Arpit is asking, many publications ask for the abstract to be submitted first, but they usually announce the final submission date. Yeah. I would recommend research first before writing the abstract. Have at least somewhat of a research because I've felt this problem myself. What happens is sometimes you've written like a fabulous abstract and you always I at least tend to overestimate myself thinking I will cover all of these topics in my article. And once you actually start writing it, you realize you're not even covering 50% of what you promised. Now you have already given your abstract, so you can't not do it. And then it becomes a huge problem. So ideally, this is why you write your abstract in the end after you have written the paper. So you are actually mentioning what's there. But I understand like a lot of publications do ask for abstract first because it's easier for them. Why would they want to waste reading 20 minutes of your paper if they can reject your paper in 2 minutes? So it's more ideal from their sense that they'll just read the abstract and it is expected that your abstract will give an exact representation of your paper. But how do you approach is, it's not feasible to write the whole thing and then write the abstract in these cases, but at least do a preliminary research. Find out certain things about it. So have an idea. So when your abstract gets selected and you begin writing it, it doesn't go absolutely south. You have some idea to it. So do a preliminary research and then write your abstract. Don't write your abstract and then start with any kind of research. Do a preliminary research. Always do a preliminary research. Even before deciding your topic, do a preliminary research and then do it. It'll help you a lot. Then the next question is, with the increasing AI becoming increasing embedded. Okay, so one thing about it is any good publication editorial process, they will check for AI, right? When I was working with NLU also, and then we've taken so many people from PAC for internship. But then the first thing I would do is run your work through the Turnitin and see if there was AI or plagiarism. And if it was on a high level, so many students got rejected. And then I kept mentioning to PAC, I was like, tell them I will run it through the Turnitin. And then I'm like, fine, we're telling them and still it's happening because you think it will not get caught for some reason, but then these are softwares and they will catch it. So how to go about is, like, for example, if you're thinking of a topic and you have no idea what the topic is, if you just put that in the AI and AI gives you option of, AI can give you options about what you can look into. So if you just tell AI, oh, I want to look into rights of child. Now it's a huge thing. You don't know how to narrow it down yourself. If you just feed that into AI, AI will give you options. Oh, the rights of child can be from this perspective, that perspective, this. Now, when you have that narrowed version, it's your responsibility to look for the information on your own. Or even if you ask, also because a lot of things have happened is you think whatever AI is telling you, even the sources is correct, and it's not because AI just hallucinates so much. So what you do is you can even take the help of AI in giving you the articles. But don't just rely on the articles AI finds for you. Use it as a stepping stone to find more articles for yourself. So AI can help you if you have like zero idea and you're absolutely lost on where to start from. But AI will not, don't let AI help you in writing the whole thing, because AI is good as a tool to assist you, not as a tool to replace you. Now, there are two, three things about it. A lot of publications have like zero AI policy, and a lot of publications have policies that says if you have used AI as a writing tool, you need to mention the percentage and give credit to the AI as a co-author. So there are international publications we have begun this. They're saying, oh, we need you to give co-author to AI. So, but then what does it look like when that piece get published? It says, oh, written by your name plus AI. And you have to mention exactly what percentage. And so different publications allow different percentage of AI. Already less than 20% AI is difficult to find. So if it's less than 20% AI, it just gives you false positive and asterisks, and we can never 100% know. But use AI to refine things. Use AI if you are stuck and lost at something. I think a lot of people also, what they do, the mistake is they think when they feed something into AI and AI is giving them a more polished version, AI is just correcting like their grammar, because you're not quite sure if your syntax is right, you're not quite sure if your grammar is right, and you're like, oh, AI is helping us do that. But if AI is changing the structure of your sentence, even if you think you are just using it for grammar purposes, it will all be marked as AI. It will show as AI in the report. It will, and also now Turnitin in all of those good reports, not just shows AI, it also shows AI rewritten as AI. So it will show somebody try to make it AI, then somebody try to use humanizer on it, and then also use to put it in another AI to make it look like human-like. It shows different categories of it. So you might think that it's not getting out there, but then we can see like, oh, first paragraph is complete AI. Second paragraph is AI plus humanizer. Third paragraph is like AI plus humanizer plus using another editing tool. It shows it category wise. So any good publication would have it, access to it. If you're giving, and that is why it's important to get published at good places, and that is why publications of these places are recognized, is because you have faith and trust in them that, oh, they would have done their due diligence. If you're getting published at a place that they're not even checking this, then you lose your credibility, because even if you have written something honestly, somebody else has written something shitty, which is also published in the same journal as you. So if somebody else reads that article first, you will lose your credibility, because they'll be like, this journal is publishing anything. It's not even quoted, it's not referenced, I can tell it's AI. What is it? So you lose your credibility there, because that journal is not doing the due diligence. So when you're picking up your publications, ensure that you are doing it honestly and doing it for yourself. You might think, I'll have like 15 publications on my name, it'll look amazing. It will only if those publications mean something. Otherwise, it'll just be like, oh, this is like an academic fraud. We don't want them. Like there have been instances where we've tried to invite people to give lectures, and like when you're working at great places, you do a full background check. So you're looking at their work, because we want to invite them to talk about one of the work that they had published. So we were reading the work. The work was good, but the place that it was published turned out to be a predatory journal. So that ultimately lost the credibility that, oh, they published, their last work is published in a predatory journal work. Now, if you are a professional now, but some of your work as a student was published there, it would still be okay, because, as students, we give that kind of excuse that you did not know well. It happens. You did not know so well back then, so it happens. But as you keep growing and entering the world, your publication where it is really matters. So I would really recommend you to think about where you're getting published, and the best bet is start with any law school's publications. Any law school's publications, their centers blogs, their student law reviews. Do that. Don't go for like random publications and random journals that say, oh, within like 1 week you'll have your certificate also, your publication also everywhere. Just don't do it. That's not worth it. So anybody else? I've finished the questions in the chat box. Anyone else has any question about any part of from last 2 days? Okay, I want to add in one quick thing that we were discussing previously. Since I've done this like 2 days workshop here, I'm hoping some of you might have some more insight on the research. So before I make the call for interns for myself official, if anyone who's attended 2 days workshop here would want to intern in the research area, this would be remote and part-time. They can write out to me. I would be happy to look into your CV and your work first before I give the open call. So I hope that helps and gives you a little bit edge of whoever wants to do something in the research area from my side. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's truly an enlightening experience. I think it really resonated with a lot of us in the research society as well. Some of the points you've touched upon, especially related to AI, we generally see that a lot when we're reviewing papers and when we're putting out a call for submissions. And truly an enlightening experience. Now, I would like to welcome Manshika Agarwal, the convener of the Placement Assistance Council, to deliver the vote of thanks. Over to you, Manshika.
A very good evening, everyone. So, as this 2 day workshop on fundamentals of research, principles, pathways, and prospects comes to an end, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to our speaker, Ms. Prerna. Thank you, ma'am, for taking out the time to share your knowledge and experiences with us. I thank you on behalf of all members of PAC, all members of the Shodh, our respective teacher conveners, and all the students of CLC who have been benefited by this workshop. It was indeed an insightful session for all of us. I hope it was equally fulfilling for you, ma'am, to come back to your college and help us navigate research a bit. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I hope it was helpful for at least somebody. Thank you.
It was very helpful, ma'am. Also, we had a request that a lot of students who have attended earlier workshop, like of the day one, they were asking that if you could share your PPT with us.
So I will, instead of sharing the PPT, I'll just make all of this information into one PDF and I'll share that.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Ma'am, I would request all of the members from PAC and Shodh to just turn on their camera so that we can have group photo.
Sure.
Is there anyone else? And I would like to add just one more thing. As ma'am has already observed, I believe, and as you can see Raghu, he's a moderator for today. He looks like a true researcher sitting in the dark background here.
Working from the background.
Thank you.
Perils of the job.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for being with us. And it was truly a very insightful session and 2 day workshop. And I believe students who join us on day 1 and day 2, they learn a lot. Even I and the whole team of Shodh and the whole team of Placement Assistant Council, they also got to learn a lot more with this 2-day workshop. And lastly, we extend our gratitude. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Good luck.
Thank you so much, man.
You're welcome. Can I leave?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much, everyone.